Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bales Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to Consider This. This is kind of a landmark month in the world of organ retrieval, organ recovery, and making that happen. We have a critical shortage of organs for people that desperately need them, and some things have happened that might ease that shortage. At least that's the hope of our guest today. I'd like you to meet Karen Risk. She's the Administrative Director of the Nebraska Organ Recovery System, and the Medical Director and President of NORS, as it's called, the Nebraska Organ Recovery System, is Dr. Frederick Ware. This is an issue we hear about, and having a transplant center in Omaha, I think we're more critically aware of how few organs become available from Nebraskans and just are out there in general. Anybody want to remind us before we get to the great things that are happening about really why this has happened?
Sure. There are more than 80,000 people on the transplant list waiting for organs, and yet over the entire country, only somewhat more than 20,000 organ transplants that are performed.
And that usually means much less than 20,000 people that they come from.
Oh yes, they come from approximately 7,000 to 8,000 people, but that disparity continues to grow as many more people become candidates to receive organs, and yet the number of people each year who have been volunteering to be organ donors hasn't really risen that much in the past 10-15 years, so that it's necessary to recover all medically usable organs that can possibly be done. And the weak link generally has been people and families knowing that the motivation was there to be a donor and making sure that that happened. Around the country, only a bit more than 50% of potential donors actually have organs recovered because of inadequacies.
A number of things.
Well, but mostly consent from the family, and we're trying to make that be more perfect.
And what we're talking about this week are a couple of things that are happening kind of simultaneously. One was the passage of LB 138 and signing by the governor this past week. It's pretty momentous, I think, in terms of those that wish to give the gift of life, assuming their organs are usable. Have had a couple of ways to do it. One was the driver's license, and that only showed intent by the law, really. It wasn't respected as the actual legal wishes. But this has changed with the passage of this bill.
The first person consent allows the individual themselves to say that they definitely want to be a donor and this is what we want to donate. And the intent behind the law is that it's not revocable by the family members.
Unless the person is under 18.
Correct.
Yes.
Assuming that the parents still have some sort of right to make decisions even after death.
Correct.
So that was passed and signed by the governor. And I personally, I don't like to give my opinion on something, but I have blared to my entire family. Now, as I get older and my organs becoming much more usable, less usable. But for years I have been saying, please do not misunderstand me. It's on here for a reason. But that's a terrible situation to put parents and next of kin in a way if they haven't really known that. So that's kind of been taken out of, the ball's been taken out of their court, in a sense.
Most of the time, if a person, say, had signed the driver's license, the family knowing that the individual wanted to do that makes it much easier for them to acquiesce and provide consent. And in all honesty, it's only rarely that there would be a conflict of interest. But now the ambiguity that had been present in having the driver's license being a legal token, but also the law that says the next of kin have the responsibility and the authority over disposal of the body, could bring out a rather nasty situation. Now that has been resolved in favor of the individual having the control over his own remains and being an organ donor.
In a sense, it put a burden on the next of kin because it's saying, maybe my child or my wife put that there, but we never talked about it, and if they really want, it makes them kind of do this dance, a psychological dance that maybe wasn't even fair in the first place. Maybe it was, but maybe it wasn't.
But still, the important thing, even with this law, is that every person should talk it over with his family, and that makes life so much easier for the survivors at a dreadful time in their life. They don't really need the burdens of considering other serious decisions to make, but now they don't have to do that because legally the wheels have all been greased.
And that could also make the difference in time frame for getting usable organs and all kinds of other things, because sometimes next of kin weren't available, and some
time is of the essence.
It certainly is.
And the families most generally will say if we knew what they wanted to do, we would go ahead, but we don't know.
Yeah, and it's just something they have to live with for the rest of their lives. And so we've had this little thing called a driver's license that we've been able to put our intent on. Now it becomes sort of a bona fide intent, changes it from just intent to
Yes, a
a
legal
declaration.
one. Yes, it
a
is
legal
legal.
declaration.
Right.
Before we get to the registry and being able to register online, with the new kinds of driver's licenses coming out, and also the ability to change your mind and go get your driver's license changed one way or the other, which has been in the law
Yes,
for
that's
some
correct.
time. The driver's license, is it still going to be on the new computerized Whammo super cool licenses that we're going to be getting?
Actually, it's a heart down on the right-hand side, down towards the bottom, and it has a heart there, and it says either yes. It says yes in the box. If you're doing it, it has nothing if you don't know.
But they've obviously signed something for the Department of Motor Vehicles saying you can put, I want the license with the heart.
I don't think that's necessarily how they do it. If it's a renewal, it's not a signature. If it is new, then they're filling out an application, and it says on there if they want to donate.
Okay. So now we're adding a component that makes it, since you only get a license every so many years, that you can go online. There's a registry that's being created. There's a ability to go online and say, proclaim yourself. Are there assurances on this site that it is you?
Well, the problem has been that we do not have legislation yet passed where the DMV information would come to this registry. As of today, it's active, and you can use it.
The site is.
The site is active, and you can put on there what your wishes are, and then in 30 days, within 30 days, you'll receive a postcard to verify that's correct, and they can sign it and then send it back to us, and we will be keeping the postcard.
And so anything that if I went online and I signed up, and then I got the postcard and I signed it, then that
Comes back to our
that comes
office.
back to you, and you're on the list. So there'll be some way for hospitals, as they do now, to coordinate with you, but they have to have permission in hand. They can call and say.
Well, they would not have access directly to the registry.
But they could-
Only the Organ Recovery Organization. That's true all over the country because they're the only people
But they
that have
can
any
call
reason.
and say we have a potential situation
Yes, well, of course,
here.
we
and
work
maybe-
with each individual hospital when they tell us that there's a potential donor brewing, shall we say.
Which sounds kind of crass, but this is the real world. This is the real world
and
of.
as you pointed out, time is of the essence.
Right.
There are only a limited period of time that one can get all of these very complicated procedures accomplished, and they have to be done reliably, reproducibly, and
efficiently.
accurately. Yes. With the postcards, they will be archived, and that would be the written signature would be retained for legal purposes, of course.
Absolutely. So the fact, though, that the motor vehicle registration and the agreement there, you haven't gotten those systems merged yet, or the law doesn't exist, or what? I would think that would be easy in this day of computer.
Well, you'd think so, but the law was introduced but was not carried through this year and is on the agenda for next year and is going to be discussed further this summer. We were wanting to get the registry up and operating even in a limited fashion with this write-in campaign, if you will.
This
So that-
type-in campaign.
Yes, assuming that the motor vehicle registry does become operational as it has in virtually all of the other parts of the country where it's extant, there will be lots more people coming, and we have to be efficiently organized.
So in a way, you'll be geared up.
This is a break-in period, but it is operational, and people who will register online, that's all tidied up, and they are registered, and they're in the system, and we're very happy for that.
Well, you'll be seeing the website here and there through the show, but to make it easy for if you want to hear it, from someone's mouth, it's www.nedonation.org. .org, like nah, Nebraska, donation, but it's all one thing, nah, donation.org. Is there, why didn't it pass this year? Is there, there's political entanglements to even tying shoes in the legislature, but was it a political thing, or were they just not ready to do it?
Well, I'd say that everything that goes on in the legislature, not meaning to be facetious, is political, and there are matters of priority and so on. There
That's
was a
true.
discussion of having the first-person consent law tied in with the registry and try to do it all at once, but we thought it was much better to have the very, very clear-cut first-person consent that no one had any argument with, pass, get it done cleanly, and then using that as the first stepping stone on the pathway, now address our attentions to the registry, and then we have a complete package.
And in a way, there's kind of a public educational learning curve. And the thing you probably want people to know, Karen, first, is that you control your destiny, in a sense. So that would be one thing we want people to understand. This state has now jumped on that bandwagon.
We also want the people to know that there is a federal law that all deaths hospital deaths have to be called to our agency. And ourselves and the IBank have worked on this project of having the donor registry, because we have a joint answering service and we do things jointly educationally.
And the Lions Eye Bank has been around and is well respected for eons.
Exactly. And so the intent is that with both of our agencies getting all those referrals, the hospital has to call us so that we will get more organs and tissues for the transplant centers, being Bryan Hospital and the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
And some of those tissues and organs could go to other parts of the country depending on which tissue and organ they are. But we do transplants in this state.
Correct.
The lead transplant center, as you said, Bryan, down in Lincoln. I think the interesting thing is that organ transplants have sort of been in the news.
Correct.
And one of the things that I think people don't understand, that this is a very exacting, I think they know emotionally that it's a very important and a very exacting thing. But there have been a few things in the news that sort of made people maybe a little squeamish about the whole issue of, should I get involved, or are they doing this right? And we should say there have been thousands and thousands of successful, at least on paper, they should have all worked out, but we have infections, we have all kinds of things. But the thing at Duke Hospital, Duke University Hospital, where the tissue or the blood typing wasn't done, the tissue typing, whatever, I think that kind of unnerved people.
Of course it has, and citing statistics doesn't minimize that when you say that's one case out of, as you say, literally tens of thousands. For that one family, it's 100%. It's utterly devastating, and so you can't use those kind of statistics. Every organ procurement organization like NORS is keenly aware that the myriad of details have to be carried out, and as a matter of fact, in connection with blood typing, quite a long time ago, we have a triple fail-safe sort of thing that was implemented, and I wouldn't claim that 100% of the time it's going to be right, because nobody can absolutely say that, but let's just say that we are constantly in fear of a mistake, and we are doing everything that we can think of to tighten up, and places all over the country feel exactly the same way.
But it probably hasn't been a big issue with people wanting to donate their organs, more than those that may be looking to receive an organ and just wonder, praying, crossing fingers that what is done 99.9% of the time is done.
A higher percent than that, actually, Carol.
I probably is.
But again, that doesn't answer there. That's not an answer to the mistake.
It doesn't affect me as a potential donor, much as the hundreds and hundreds of families that are waiting. They're waiting for an organ. The other thing that I noticed generated a lot of discussion in the public pulse and things was a series of articles about prisoners and who are in need of organs, and being able to be put on a list, which tries to be a rather objective list. In other words, if people go on a list, they go on for some, what hopefully are very objective reasons. In other words, you can't buy a place on a donation list, and you can't do this. So in order to be sort of objective, prisoners sort of fall into this objective category, what their need is, what their general health is. I don't know what all the criteria are, and we could talk about it. And then the fact that people are saying, and our tax dollars are paying for it. Did you hear any ramifications or street talk about that? That did seem to upset people?
We got quite a few calls saying they were going to tear up their donor cards. They were no longer going to be a donor because they didn't think this was correct. What could they do to change that? And basically, the only way to change it is go through the legislature.
I could try to answer on two levels. One, as a representative of NORS, our only job is to acquire and help to distribute and utilize all the organs and tissues we can. We don't have any concern with exactly what you're getting at, but as a physician and a person involved in dialysis for many years, this sort of thing came up. And I had done some study on it, and my conclusion was that you cannot withhold a medical commodity, in this case a transplant, just on the basis of the individual moral characteristics or what have you. A physician must be an ombudsman for his patient, using every legality that's available for that one patient. And if the laws right now say that a felon is justified in being on the list, then the physician has to fight for that. The only way you could change it, as Karen says, is to make the law prospectively different. But as I'm sure you understand, that would raise a can of worms on its own.
Right, and because I looked at it when I saw the thing saying I'm going in and getting another driver's license. It doesn't have this. I'm telling, and I guess I've said you can take my bone marrow. I can be alive to do that. They can. Yeah. So I'm on that list too. But I thought, wait a minute. Okay, let me think. Why would people say that? Because the chances of that going to someone that you feel doesn't have the right. I don't want people making decisions. I don't want the people like you. I want some objectivity, because we have heard, or at least in a sort of Orwellian world or a Big Brother world or a big money world, we've all pictured scenarios where the money buys the organs. And I think I really like the idea that it's a rather antiseptic system, to kind of use that, in that they have a criteria based on need and availability and everything, and it's kind of blind, like justice is supposed to be blind.
Well, medical decisions are based on medicine and not on legal technicalities, and physicians are not lawyers. If you wish to withhold organs from people that don't pass legal muster, then you have to make legal changes to give you the guidelines.
But I couldn't think of the fact that my organ, and like I said, they're becoming more unusable by the day, but that a child or someone's mother of a child, or all the different people who have so many reasons to live, that I would they would be the most likely one to get it, not a felon or whatever. So. And that felon might be someone who's going to get out of jail and lead a productive life, and is the father. We don't know that. So I guess
it's only
okay, chill out, Carol. It's all right.
Exceptions make the news. The thing when things are running smoothly, that's not news. My father was a newspaper man, and
yes, he
and
was a very, very well-respected editor of the World Herald.
He used to drum that sort of thing into me. You get a very distorted idea sometimes. The felon getting the transplant happens very, very rarely. There's a heart out in California people are still talking about, but think of literally the tens of thousands of organs that have gone to entirely meritorious people, and for individuals to be outraged that there could be a miscarriage of justice, in quotation marks, and withhold their organs would mean that almost undoubtedly there would be half a dozen people who are very meritorious that would not benefit when otherwise they would have, and that makes me feel bad.
I would love to have anyone that thinks that. I had the wonderful opportunity to go out to the Cleveland Clinic and cover the case of the first Nebraskan who had a heart transplant. His name is Philip J. And he's left this world. His heart gave out, but he was a very ill man who needed a heart very badly, who had children, and he was a very humble man. And he was able to live. He had some, problems. That was before some of the medicines for rejection and everything were worked out as well as they are now. But he had some life left with that family and had a wonderful life in his family. And I thought, who would want a Philip J. to get a heart or keep them? But I will never forget Philip J.
I certainly agree that a successful transplant is the greatest medical miracle that I have seen in the 50 years that I've been around since I started medical school.
There have been quantum leaps, but that
Oh my
certainly
gosh, yes.
is a quantum exponential
Yeah.
leap, because it has just changed the way so many second chances that just, of course, we are so blessed with medical miracles, but it brings a whole other issue of the cost of better care. We're facing that with our Social Security Medicare system, our prescription drug situation, and certainly the cost of an organ transplant. And we're going to have to face some of those issues with regard to whether we'll even be able to have I mean, they're facing that now.
To be quite honest, if we were going to be putting restrictions on people who were in the eyes of the law not meritorious to be on the list, since there's such a disparity between availability and need, then to be fully honest, you would really have to address the matter of medical eligibility, because there are some conditions for which some transplants are done now, not a large number, but those in which there are doctors around that would say those people should not be on the transplant list, that here they are taking an organ, in quotation marks, wasting it because there's no chance of their...
Give me an example.
Okay, so
I
somebody
can't
that has
figure it out.
a primary cancer of the liver.
Okay.
The success rate of liver transplants in those people is very, very poor compared to doing it for a child that has atresia of the biliary ducts, that the bile can't get out of the liver. They do splendidly well.
Kind of a plumbing problem.
Plumbing
that they can
problem,
get fixed.
and that's right. Whereas the liver cancer cases usually have recurrence of the tumor, and it just plain doesn't work. And yet, in many surgeons' eyes and hepatologists' eyes, those people are valid medical candidates for a transplant, but that would be rationing the same way as excluding somebody who's a felon, to be sure, for kiting a check and is in the pokey for 18 months being ruled out.
And I'm sure in medical circles and in transplant circles, these discussions don't rage on all the time, but they crop up now and then, and that we will begin to see them in the headlines as maybe we'll have more organs, and that won't be the issue, it's money will be the issue, and insurance, and already, I mean, you have to raise to have most transplants, many transplants, not all, but you have to raise a chunk of change up front.
Yes, and then hospitals take a lot of heat for that, but the CEOs, if they make the hospital bankrupt, then many people die from relatively easy diseases, and that's not honest either to the populace at large. There are in this world many questions for which there aren't answers. This just happens to be one area.
But it's something that we'll keep reading about, and just trying to give folks a little insight from your perspectives. I do want to give you an opportunity. We have some little time left. You are a quietly operating, efficient organization that does great work, and I don't think people are really that familiar. If you wanted Karen to say, we really don't want to put a lot of publicity. We just like doing what we do. You just do what you do and donate, and you will make sure that people live longer. What would you like to say about Nebraska Organ Recovery System? And we can kind of throw in the Lions Eye Bank in terms of you operate under very similar systems because you're federally approved to do this.
Right. We are the designated, federally designated organ recovery program for the state of Nebraska. The eye bank, of course, recovers eyes for transplantation. Corneas is what we're talking. And also we recover what we call tissues, and to separate that from organs, which is heart for valves if the heart can't be used for transplant, saphenous vein, bones, tendons, they are all used for different transplants. So it's transplantation in a different sense than what you think of with organs, but it's very needed for those people to be able to have the usage of their limbs.
And I was surprised once when, and maybe my memory fails me as I get older, but it seemed to me there was something about when I signed up for the first driver's license where I was able to designate, this is something, do you want all your organs, or, there was some, and I said, you mean like my bones? Well, yeah, they can use your bones. It's not like they need them right this minute and they have to go now like a heart does, but bone can be sort of recycled.
Exactly.
It literally can be put in the bank.
Yes, can literally be put in the bag. And you would coordinate.
Our coordinators coordinate all those functions and do the consents with the families. When it comes to tissue, it's our trained coordinators that do the recovery of the tissue. If it's organs, it's done by the surgeons.
We're, you know, obviously I have this, I've watched enough ER and I've watched all these shows and I know that, you know, they use a cooler and they rush it out and it's at certain organs time is of the essence. But I guess these other things would have to be banked. I mean, tissues, valves that don't have to go right, don't have that as much time sensitivity.
Well, they are processed and quarantined for a period of time, and this most of them can be kept 5 years or longer.
That is just amazing to me.
Right, either lyophilized or frozen in liquid.
Correct.
Air.
But those are all available for people that
Yes.
that need it. And when you need that, whatever part of the body it is, you need that.
One donor, if things work optimally from our point of view, can provide organs to approximately 6 people that are literally life-saving.
And those are
but
the organs,
The
is it?
organs, the vascularized organs, the ones that you have to hurry with, as you said. But the tissues that Karen was referring to could be divvied up, and literally dozens and dozens of people could benefit from that one gift of life.
I know and correct me if I'm wrong, because I used to be a health reporter, but I'm a little out of practice. But I mean, the bone can even be kind of ground up.
Yeah, that's what I meant, lyophilized.
And they can
Right.
they can use it like a human plaster.
They can machine
And
it too. They can
rebuild.
do marvelous things.
It's incredible.
It should also be known that here in Omaha that we're using more bone tissue than anybody else in a 5-state region. And that's hard for people to understand because they don't hear anything about it.
Why would we use more than a state?
Because they have a lot of good orthopedic surgeons here,
Exactly.
and that's why.
By golly.
Your
By go-
neurosurgeons use it, your oral surgeons, your orthopedic surgeons, and the orthopedic probably do the most uses of that, and it's more needed than what you think it is.
And I know it can be even used. I mean, you know, you think of the spinal cord. I mean, they're using. I mean, almost every part of the body that holds the body
Yes,
up.
Correct.
Not the spinal cord,
No.
spinal
Not
column.
the column.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. The cord is a
Yeah.
bunch of nerves and all of
Yes.
the kinds of important things that are. But I mean, that anything that literally holds the body up
Correct.
can sort of be use bone tissue.
Yeah, you were saying some very nice things. I would like to point out that there are just shy of 60 organ procurement organizations around the country serving all of the states. And they don't have a high profile, but over the past 15 years, steady educational processes, both at the professional level and especially at the layman's level, have done a great deal to help us. Many families of potential donors will bring up the topic to us before we even have brought it up to them, and the information is much more widespread and the enthusiasm is greater. It's a shame that those tragedies have taken a back step there, but programs like this help.
Sometimes a tragedy can be ever so slightly mitigated by the fact that you know that something else can be done. I thank you. We've run out of time. The website is www.nedonation.org. If you'd like to log on and say, I'm online for this. This is important.
Great.
Karen Risk, Dr. Ware, thank you for joining us. And unotv.unomaha.edu is where you can see this show and past shows. We'll see you next week.